Sorry.
Now, Nicole, ready? Welcome, Nicole.
Welcome.
Welcome, Nicole.
And Susan,
Thank
and then
you.
Susan, and then Catherine. Ready on
Okay.
three. 1, 2, 3. Welcome,
Welcome,
Susan.
Susan.
And Catherine.
Yes, and let's do one
Welcome.
on three.
Welcome.
1, 2, 3. Welcome.
Welcome, Catherine.
Welcome.
Sandra next. 1, 2, 3. Welcome, Sandra.
Welcome, Sandra.
Welcome,
Welcome, Sandra.
Sandra.
to all.
And now for Debbie. 1, 2, 3. Welcome, Debbie.
Welcome, Debbie.
Welcome, Debbie.
And last but not least, Marjorie. 1, 2, 3. Welcome,
Welcome,
Marjorie.
Thank
Woo.
you.
Yes, and we put our hands towards each other for a warm welcome, energizing all of us, especially the people who are experiencing a snowstorm. That's all of Montreal. Those are joined us, and those are just here in spirit or are thinking of it but couldn't join us yet today. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Pauline.
Welcome.
Oh, Pauline. Yes, welcome, Pauline.
Welcome, Pauline.
Welcome.
Welcome. Well, today we continue our preparation for the spring equinox. And this week, last week we did stillness and listening, and now we're doing seeing with fresh eyes and awakening to wonder. And I'm looking forward to sharing some practices that come from the Radiant Sutras that we're using for this series this month. And right before I sat down to meet with all of you, my roommate, who's also an ordained minister from One Spirit, she said, "Oh, you're doing wonder. You might be interested in this book." And I happened to open it up to a great chapter, and I'll share part of it with you. But in case you're interested, you probably can't see this. Tracking Wonder. I won't try to show it to you. It's Tracking Wonder by Jeffrey Davis. And he was one of my roommate's coaches. And she won't be my roommate for very long because next Sunday, after our service together, I'll be moving into my house. Yay! Finally! Oh, spring is here in a new house. So, last week was about stillness. We did some practice and pausing using our breath. And some of you may have had more of an awareness in the past week about pausing, noticing. And let me just share a picture from our shared story last week. Do you guys remember this guy? Hold on. Let me share my screen. There he is. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was the little twig that was like, "Come on, everybody else is getting ready. Aren't we ready to go, to move it, get it done, get it done, get it done." And then the wise old oak said, "No, it's not time yet. We need to build up our energy." And let me just share where I want to focus today. So you might remember this picture too. And this picture I love because it shows the energy. I don't know that mycelium actually look like that in the soil. Doesn't matter. The idea is that our preparation for the equinox is to continue to prepare our soil, to continue to prepare our energy, our awareness, and our inner warmth, and notice it in maybe quiet, subtle ways. So today's focus is about wonder as one of the ways to nourish this light inside of us, deep inside of us, that is getting ready to come to the surface and blossom and leaf out and bloom and be flexible and be spring-like again and be spring. And wonder is one of those elements, and it's not something that we wait around for necessarily. There is a bit of balance between the natural unfolding and timing. Like that little sprout was like, "Well, can't we just will it to make it happen? Come on, let's get going." And the big tree was like, "Nope, it's not time. We have to feel for that energy that's getting ready to burst up from within, kind of like Kundalini energy, which is that life force energy that rises from our the depths of our basic center or the base of our spine and then moves its way up, just like sap in a tree moves its way up. So let's begin with a practice just to get ourselves into an awareness where we can do a little more practicing, bringing about wonder and noticing it. So the first thing that I would like you to do is close your eyes or soften your gaze. This is kind of a little guided meditation, although it's not a meditation, it's more of an experience. And I'd like you to become aware of the layers of sound around you. You could tune into the sound that's the faintest, or perhaps the farthest away. As you breathe and feel your body relaxing in the seat, you're listening. As you relax and breathe more deeply, if you'd like, you could try on deer ears, which is where you can cup your hands like this, kind of behind your ears, sort of push that fleshy part of your ear forward, if that helps you, and maybe turn your head a little bit like a deer would, or aim your palms of your hands in the direction of a faint sound and see if it gets louder, or see if you notice different sounds. With this sort of amplifies the directionality of our ears. You could also try putting your palms this way, where you're listening behind you better. And turn your head and notice, what are you hearing? And now move your hands to the table or to your lap and start using your skin and your fingers and the palms of your hands to notice the different textures. And maybe count how many different textures you can feel just from where you're sitting right now. And don't forget your own skin and your own hair, your clothing, what you're sitting on, what's in front of you. And with your next big deep breath, shift now to the scents that are around you. Are there fragrances? You might also notice the coolness or freshness of the air. How many different scents or fragrances can you smell just from where you're sitting right now? And with your next big deep breath, as you relax even more deeply, now open your eyes and look freshly, look anew, and notice things like colors, shadows, different lightnesses, different light, bright light, shadowy light. Notice movement, what's moving. And I am going to invite you to use your peripheral vision. If you hold up both hands in front of you, just look forward, but notice, like wiggle your fingers a little bit, and then see how far, just looking straight ahead, how far can you go with your hands behind you, towards your shoulders, and still see your fingers moving? How far can you go, still looking straight? This is to widen your peripheral vision. Again, like a deer, we had deer ears, these are deer eyes. And then take another look. What's moving in your deer field of vision? And then take another breath and bring your hands to your heart center. And just feel how your presence has changed. Just notice what's different. Is your breathing different? Is your are your neck and shoulders more relaxed? Is there a pause, a stillness, or a peacefulness that you can feel arising? And let's rub our hands together and come back in our room together and be grateful for that we can tune in to that experience at any time, just by noticing our senses. Right? We started with sound, and then we went to touch, and then we went to sense. You could add taste in there if you want. And last but not least, we tuned into our eyesight, because that's used so much. It tends to dominate all the rest. So we save that for last, and hopefully our eyes could see things we wouldn't normally notice. And these deer ears that we used, and the peripheral vision, deer eyes to widen our peripheral vision, or like owl vision. Those are things I learned in the mindful leadership. So when I lead people on walks, I can use those tools to help them take in their experience in the natural world in a different way. But you can use it indoors too. So feel free to try those on when you want to. So one of the sutras, it's Sutra 97, says that every moment is an explosion of wonder, where you're bathing in a waterfall of perceivable reality, and each droplet is a miracle. So every moment is an explosion of wonder. We're bathing in a waterfall of perceivable reality, each droplet a miracle. So today is about opening ourselves up to those droplets of wonder more often as our preparation for our own blossoming in spring. Okay, let's do now they're kind of in the mode. Let's keep going. Let's try another practice for perceiving. Pick something that's an object, hopefully close to you, like maybe a cup or a bowl or a box, something that has, I'm going to just take this glass of water. It doesn't have to have anything in it. Something that contains space. So a box without a lid, a cup, a mug, a bowl, your hands, it could be a cupped hand. And we're gonna do a couple different perception exercises with this. Yes, take a drink if it's a glass of water. All right, let's start close in. Hold up your object, whatever it is, in front of you. Mine's a glass of water. And let's notice the surface of what it is. Let's notice the details. Are there any bumps or cracks? Just observe it. What's the texture? What's the temperature? Does it smell like anything? How would we describe its shape? Does it have hard edges or soft edges? How does it reflect the light? And kind of go inside, like a kind of a 70s term for this is grokking, right? To grok something is to like go so deep inside, you're like melding your consciousness with it to a certain extent. It's like a very deep way to observe and feel yourself becoming one in consciousness with this object. Like if you were this object, what would it feel like to be it? Think about the molecules and the atoms and the world of form and energy that makes up this object. Let's just take that in for a minute. And go in like you're a microscope. Remember to breathe and use all of your senses, sight, touch, taste, smell, sound. What's the object sound like? What's it sound like in there? And now take a deep breath and let's shift our perspective and bring it out now from being deep in the glass or whatever you're holding. Let's bring it out and let's look around. What's the context? So what's surrounding this glass? What's in the room with it? What's closest to it? What's touching it? And go out from there. What's around it in the room? And how does that interplay? So I can see on my glass the lights in the ceiling reflecting on the glass and the water within. And as I turn it, I can notice like rainbow refraction happening in the water. And I can see the lights in the ceiling reflecting from the edge. And as I look at the light, I can see the relationship between the two. And now let's go even bigger. And I'm in my room in a bigger apartment. And to zoom out even more, that apartment is in a village by a river, which is part of where this water came from. And I think of the ground, I think of the people in the village, then I go out to Alamance County, and I think of the roadways and the towns and where I get my groceries. And now I'm zooming even more, so do the same thing, zoom out and see the city of Montreal. See its geography, see the river, see what's north and south of it, east and west, as you go up and take an even wider view. And you start to see the bigger Earth, the whole continent of North America and the Arctic and the oceans. In our power of imagination, we're zooming all the way up like we're in an airplane, maybe in a rocket. Maybe we're taking on the perspective of a star viewing all the continents and oceans and clouds and weather systems, like the snowstorm system that's visiting you right now. And enjoy the view from up there, that big, vast view, that giant horizon. And look for the sun up there and the moon. And with your next big inhale, bring your attention back to the object in your hand. And then come back into our Zoom room together, our sanctuary. And take another sip of water if that's what you're holding. And move a little bit. So you're back here. Move your toes, move your fingers, move your shoulders. Move around a little bit. Think about, what did you notice? What shifted? What shifted in you? And to give you some food for thought, in this book from my roommate, part of noticing things, which opens up the opportunity for us to enter those feelings of awe and wonder, which we're going to get to if you didn't already feel it. Has to do with our openness of our hearts, our openness of our bodies, our openness, especially of our mind. So it's like a closed state of attention or an open state of attention. And exercises like we just did together are one of many ways to open our awareness. So a closed state, according to this book, this is like, I was so happy I found this little summary to share with you. A closed state feels like your eyesight is narrowed and focused. Kind of like when you're looking at the object close up, right? We're looking at every little thing. An open state would be our peripheral vision is expanded. We could see the horizon. A closed state feels like muscles around our temples and our neck and our shoulders, maybe even our stomach are kind of tight, maybe a little rigid, Where an open state feels more like our muscles are relaxed and our breathing is easy. We have a sense of ease about us and things are flowing. A closed state our mind thinks like getting things done, right? When's this going to be over, right? What's the next step, right? I got to get on with my to-do list. Whereas an open state is more like play, right? How many of you felt a sense of play by the end of that little exercise? Just raise your hand if it felt fun. All right, hopefully you felt a little playful there. A closed state could feel like persisting with what you know. So when we were like grokking the object, it's easy to get in the descriptive mode and identify things and count things and judge things. That's persisting with what is known. But exploring the possibilities was the invitation to really grok the glass and think about what it might feel like or what's happening on the microscopic level there, When we turn on our imagination, that's one of the ways to explore possibilities. So when we started to pull out our view and get bigger in Montreal and North America and bigger, we're using our imagination and we are exploring possibilities. That's an open state of mind. And lastly, a closed state is more like projecting and commanding and willing. There's nothing wrong with these states. They're just different contrasts. And the open state is more like listening, asking, and wondering, like being curious, right? Being curious about what it is that we're perceiving. And it's a really easy way to practice that is to getting into that open state is to just find a horizon to look at. So out the window, I don't know if all of you have a window to look out of. Can you see a horizon out your window? It could be the cityscape, it could be a close horizon, or it could be a far off one. See what you can see that gets your eyesight on some sort of an out there scale. Or maybe you need to make your way up to Mount Royal or something and see the skyline or the sunset or the sunrise or something. But just doing that can shift your awareness into a more open consciousness, a more open state. And this is all the groundwork for awe and wonder. All right. All right, so we've done two things so far. We've used our senses to tune in. We've done the go deep and grokking all the way up to open, more open and out. And now I'm going to share some practices. The Radiant Sutras, if you haven't ever read this book, are different categories of things. And the whole back section, I would say the back third, are practices you can try on. And a lot of them have to do with where you put your attention during a meditation, but some of them are more active. So I'm going to share the two that have to do with this changing our perception to open the door to more awe and wonder, more and more open thinking and feeling. So this first one is called drishti. That's a Sanskrit word. It means seeing, viewing, and beholding, with the mental eye included, like sight and the faculty of seeing, the mind's eye. But it also means wisdom and intelligence, regard and consideration, view and emotion. There's a whole bunch of other definitions. So what I'm learning about Sanskrit, which I'm no expert in yet, although I'm very curious and have been diving into it more. It's a word in Sanskrit really represents kind of like a principle. And then there's all these different multiple definitions around that thought, that principle. So here's a practice to try on. Whenever you have time, look at the empty spaces. So I would ask you now to pick up what you were looking at in the last exercise. So here's my glass. And actually look at, look how it contains space. Look at its walls, its top, its bottom, and then shift your perception and look at what it's holding. Mine's holding water, and I can see the shape of the water. It's also holding space, it's holding air, and it's giving form to the air. And I can see that separate, see the water and see the air separate, if I use my imagination, separate from the glass. And in that instance of shifting from the hard object to what's inside, even if it's empty, seemingly empty space, there's you ever play those games where, do you see what do you see? Do you see an hourglass or do you see two people talking, right? Those like mind pictures that you shift your perception on. It's kind of like that feeling. And you remember the sensation when you finally see the picture, you're like, oh my God, now I see it. My perception changed. Or for a long time in the 90s, there were these pictures that looked like television, the old television screens, and you couldn't really recognize what was in there, and you had to stare at it and stare at it. People bought posters of them, and then all of a sudden the picture would just resolve in your eyeballs could actually see like a face or see what was intended in the picture. But at first glance, it was just, craziness. It was undecipherable until the moment when it all resolved. And then it's that moment a moment of awe. It's a moment of wonder, the little split second that you can feel that shift. So when you look at your container, or maybe a different one, maybe you can't do it on this one anymore because you're too close to it, but maybe there's another one that you can look at, maybe the cup of your hand, or here's a candle. And can I try it? Can you shift your attention and see the space for what it is? See the space as the object, not the container that's holding it. And could you feel when could you shift your attention, and could you notice something, a split second of like, oh. So that's the practice of drishti. And it says, be prepared to catch what happens in the twinkling of an eye. That's how fast it is. And notice what happens in that instance in your body. There's a momentary dissolution, a quiet dissolving into space. And the next moment, you come back to yourself, into the usual way that you're perceiving. So it's just a flash. It's just a flash. That's the practice of drishti. And I invite you to try that this week. Give it a shot to help you get into that open mind. Look for a horizon to look at. Tune in with your senses. So now you have 3 ways. And let me add one more. So you're gonna have four ways to get into awe and wonder, to get ready for spring. This one is called Prakasha. Prakasha. And this is about the space between. So there's the space contained that we just looked at. And this is about the space between. All right. So we're going to do, let me read something, a little quote, and then we're going to do a practice together. All right. When the space between any two perceptions, thoughts, or objects starts shining forth, it's a kind of a joke. One moment, space is just there, hiding out in the open, saying, no one can see me. Then, with the magic of attention, the space in between becomes bright with interaction. And I like how this author, Lauren Roach, described that as a joke. Like all of a sudden you notice that space between. All right, so we're going to try that. Turn on for those of you who are on camera, and Susan and Marjorie, if you want to join us, and Pauline, it would be great to see everybody's face, but that's okay if you can't join us doing this. And we can see everybody, right? And Zoom actually maximizes our heads, right? But I would like you to just shift your gaze, and I find it helpful to soften my gaze a little bit, not be too narrowly focused, because that's a closed thinking. I'm trying to open my thinking. Hi, Marjorie. And seeing your smiling face, and look at what we would call, artists might call this negative space, right, Marjorie? So what's around, like you could look at me, what's around me? What's in the space around me? And look at Nicole. What's in the space? We can see Nicole, but what's the space around Nicole? And what's the space around Debbie? We're bringing that forward. So in our attention, that takes prominence. And Sandra. And we can notice little things like all the pictures that Sandra has, and the lamp on one side of her, and the window that we can almost look out of. But we can also just take it in as like a shape, bigger. It's bigger than Sandra, right? The shape around her is bigger than Sandra. And there's Catherine. We can see all the different shades of white and gray, and the vertical lines, and the horizontal lines. We can just see her environment, but we can also see how that shape rests on her shoulders, against her black sweater, and how it caresses her neck and her ear and her hair. And we could look at Dr. Maya and see the plant that tickles her shoulder and the side of her head, and the beautiful colors above her. You can see how she's kind of nestled in to her background. And Marjorie, we can see Marjorie's ceiling and her cabinets. We can see all the little round shapes, one above her head, like a little halo. Right? We can see the lines coming out of her shoulder, on both shoulders. She's got these shapes, right, that come up. And we can see overall, that we could probably fit 4 or 5 Marjories in that shape, can't we? We could fit 4 or 5 Marjories in that box. Okay, now for this practice, though, it's not just about the shape. It's about the interaction of 2 or more shapes together. So what happens when we go like this? If you guys hold your hands like this or like this. Now look at the interaction of not our hands, but the shape, the space between our fingers and what's next to us on the screen in your view. What's happening here? We totally just switched it. We didn't just change the shapes in our screen. We're now interacting with each other, especially if we move our fingers. And it's just an opportunity to change the shape. All right, make a shape. How about a circle? What's this feel like if we all have a circle? That's an interesting interaction. Do you guys see the pattern overall, like a kaleidoscope pattern? If you have your view in Zoom, excuse me, as seeing all the little boxes, it looks sort of kaleidoscope-like, doesn't it? Make a random shape, any shape you want. Do make another one. I'm just playing with you guys. Thanks for playing along, right? This should be playful, open, looking in a different way. Let's show appreciation for each other. I hope this brought you some playfulness, some openness, some shift in perspective, maybe a little awe and wonder. And imagine what you can do with these tools, these thought tools, the next time you walk outside. You could look for a horizon. You could look at the open space and see it as a thing. You can see, like, if you see two people talking to each other, you can look at the space between them in a different way and see if this helps, even in a snowstorm, or maybe especially in a snowstorm, perceive in a different way that opens up your perception. And all this is to cultivate your own mycelium network deep inside as you prepare for your inner blooming for the spring. I want to close with another sutra, a quote, and then I have a closing song for you. All right, here is the quote. It's from number 75 in the Book of Sutras. It says, "Wander in the untamed, uncharted expanse of the heart. Be fascinated by the everyday miracles playing at the edges of your perception." Playing at the edges of your perception. And then here's a song I know you guys love because when I was there, we played it a lot. So let me find it here. And maybe you can guess what it is while I make sure I have it queued up for you. It has the word train in it. Here we go.
Peace train.
Yes,
Yay.
you've got it. You've got it. And I have it up. Yes. And it's from that same group that did our first song, because I think they do the most fantastic version of it. And it does feature Cat Stevens. So feel free to get up and dance and turn up your volume so that you can hear it. And this is how we will close our time together.
Now I've been happy lately, thinking about good things to come. And I believe it could be something good has begun.
Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world just one. And I believe it could be someday it's gonna come.
Cause I'm on the edge of darkness and there rides the peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country, come take me home again.
Now I've been smiling lately, thinking about the good things to come. And I believe it could be something good has begun.
Peace train sounding louder, glide on the peace train. Jump upon the peace train.
Rendin chomtima arkidam fata seila de mangaron una de kadi fadi ma joni etto ma jola ar abbo dam 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 bunam dam watadi ma una de fadi ma joni
crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? Peace train sounding loud, glide on the peace train. Ooh, ah, come on, peace train. Peace train, holy road. Everyone jump upon the peace train. Ooh, ah, come on, come on, come on.
Come on and ride on the peace train.
Come on, come on, come on. Let's come on, peace train.
Come on, come on, come on. Peace train.
Come on, join me. I'm jumping on the peace train.
Come on, the peace train.
Peace train.
Thank you for so much fun today. And back to you, Dr. Maya.